Good morning, everyone. Isn't it lovely for us who drive that we didn't have to drive through snow this morning? As much as I think it's beautiful, I do not enjoy driving in it. Our opening hymn is God Who Gives to Life. More Voices, number 260. And anyone who's uncomfortable standing, please sit. God who gives to life its goodness, God created of all joy. God who gives to us our freedom, God who blesses the world and joy. Teach us now to love and praise you. Excuse me. Welcome to Winfield United Church. No matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter where you are in your faith journey, you're welcome here. And we hope you find your time with us, a time of enrichment, a time of encouragement on your journey. We are on the land of the Silks people, and we acknowledge and we remember that we're standing on their ancestral territorial grounds. We're grateful for their stewardship, what they've taught us about the land, its resources, and about the teachings of how sacred this land really is. Announcements. Who has announcements this morning? Kim has announcements, or Kim is going. Okay. United Church calendars are here. They're $13 each. They're very nice, and I'm sure Sharon can show you a copy of them after if you would like. On the table, you can see your own. Sharon saved herself a job. One of our more important announcements is our pageant coming up. It's getting closer and closer, and slowly but surely, we are getting everything done for it. I am so pleased. I hadn't finished. Yeah. There's going to be 2 performances. One is Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. If you can send, I think, Sharon, are you going to send this out to everyone in the congregation so they know about it? But does that cover everyone who doesn't read the skim? What about people who aren't here?
It'll be in Castanet, Facebook, on our webpage, and a couple other places.
Sounds good. Okay, so you're getting, I was going to say, if you have a master list, just send it out to the master list. And yeah, and please put on it, share with your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, anybody who's close, because it's going to be fun to watch. It's a serious play, but it's also a lot of fun. fire blankets. Who on Facebook has noticed all the ads for fire blankets lately? Yeah, we're getting bombed with them. And yet they're a really good thing. It's too bad Lynn isn't here this morning, or she could tell you more about them. We have ours hanging in the kitchen now, and hopefully we'll never have to use it. But we do have one. And I have to admit, I bought one for every one of my children and their families. So, seniors' Christmas need. Lake Country Health has their angel tree. Take an angel, buy a gift. But where's Bev? Is Bev here? Yes. You have another program, don't you? Or who has the other program? Lynn. Yeah, where we were going to adopt a family. Sorry, I'm hoarse this morning. So 2 things to consider. And Lake Country Health would like their gifts in by the 13th. We also have our coffee continuing on Tuesdays, 10 to noon. Our group varies in size, but it's always interesting, and you never know who might show up. And you never know where the conversations are going to lead to. So it's always worth coming to.
Where's this tree?
This tree?
Is that Lake Country Health?
Yeah, that one's at the health. But Lynn has another one. I don't have anything on Lynn's. Basically, I think what she was doing is we're looking for a family that we can buy gifts for one family. So we would choose a gift to make their Christmas and their meal complete. It's a refugee family from what I gather. Yeah. Any other announcements that I might have missed? Birthdays. Birthdays are always fun. The month before Christmas Eve, which is November 24th, Bruce Hartwick has a birthday. And May's not with us this morning, but we need to remember her birthday on the 26th. Karen is here, and your birthday is on the 27th as she hides behind her music stand. And Sam Bagardis, his birthday is on the 30th. Are there any that we've missed? Ah, so you've had it. Ah, okay. You will be coming up. No, we're just doing November. We do them week by week. Yep. Any anniversaries? No. Any visitors? Arlene, would you like to introduce your visitor? Would you like to introduce your visitor? Hold on. Kim's going to give you a mic so everyone can hear.
This is Debbie. I just met her in the parking lot this morning. And so she's new to the community and chose to come here today.
We're
Thank you.
so glad you came.
This is Debbie here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's our way of saying welcome. Debbie, where are you from?
Originally Toronto.
Okay, a long ways away then.
Yeah, we moved here 8 years ago, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're glad to have you. Any other visitors? I think that's it. So, moving on, we're lighting the Christ candle. Our life's journey might be smooth, or it might be strewn with boulders. It may be filled with sunshine or shadows, or it may be both. On this New Year's Eve of our church year, we light the Christ candle, remembering it's a beacon of warmth, of hope, and of love. May the light inspire us to live out our faith with compassion, with justice, and with peace, remembering that Jesus is the light of the world, And let us take this light beyond this morning with us into our week and into our world. One of my favorite times is God moments. The time where we get to share those things that touch us so deeply. They can be simple things, they can be complicated things, but they're things we're thankful for, and they're things that meant something to us in our life. Kim has the mic, so just raise your hand if you want to share.
It was exactly 7 years ago today that my husband and I joined this church. And the reason that we did, and we have two people to thank, and it's Tom and his then lovely wife, who we met when we were all at a Alzheimer's meeting. My husband had been diagnosed, as was his wife. And in conversation, I asked Tom, where do you go and how do you find solace and help? He said, I find it in my church. You should come and meet people and see, and maybe you can find solace in that place too. So we came, and the rest is history. Thank you, Tom.
Yes. Thank you for sharing, Louisa.
As most of you know, Rocky is just 2 now and active as all get out. She is enrolled in a music and motion program sponsored by Starbright, who follow children from birth to age 12 with who were risky at birth. And so last Thursday was her second last one for this session. And she has had a habit of crawling up onto the Crystal, who's the leader of the group, her lap when she's playing her ukulele. And Rocky helps her play the ukulele. And she's strumming in time. And Crystal is just quite amazed. Anyway, at the final part of the program is a goodbye song. So she crawled up on her lap again, and it was a short song. And as soon as Crystal said goodbye, everybody, Rocky got up and went into the middle of the big rug in the room, and she said, "Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye, kids." It was like this voice came from. All the parents were just looking at her, going, "Who is this child?"
And I have to say, too, I loved how she was last week. She was just so friendly, and she wandered, and she loved everyone, and she was such a joy to have here.
So last night, Sonia and I went over to the landmark plaza in Kelowna, where the Tree of Hope is. And we stood outside for about 45 minutes amongst several thousand people, waiting for that moment when the tree would be lit. And just shortly after 5 o'clock, 25,000 lights were lit on that tree. It was really a remarkable moment. And at the same time, all of the plaza was lit up with beautiful Christmas lighting. Just really a very heartwarming time and a great way to start off the Christmas season.
And speaking of the Tree of Light, that's a big fundraiser. And the Stober Foundation donated $500,000 to the Central Okanagan Search and Rescue Foundation. So that's huge. They can get some new equipment that they desperately need. Yeah.
Nice. Any other God moments? They seem to all come from one side this morning.
On Friday night, we took our two youngest granddaughters, Kate and Freya, to Jack and the Beanstalk, and it was at Creekside Theater. What a lot of fun. It's a pantomime, so they got the audience participating with either cheering or booing the villain or cheering the good guys. And oh my gosh, Lake Country did really well in that. The theater wasn't really completely full, but they really got involved, and it's so great to see that an audience participation. It was like, and also the God moment to have the grandkids with us, me and Mike. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Our opening prayer is up on the screen, and it's in unison this morning. So please join me. God of love and kindness, we thank you. We live in difficult times. There are moments when your kingdom seems so far away. Many of us struggle in our lives and need your kingdom promises. Yet in this time of prayer, you are close to us. And about just hope grounded in the wonder of being loved by you. Amen. And let us sing, Come and Seek the Road to Wisdom. I did a word for all ages this morning. I didn't know if Christine and the kids would be here or not at first, but I think I'll read it anyways. Someone in the audience congregation might recognize, two of them actually might recognize some of the drawings in this. Not mentioning any names here, but yeah. And Verena. Yep. So it's an interesting story. And to me, it's about seeing things differently. And we think about Jesus and his parables and how differently he sees them, or saw them, or said them, and to sometimes how we see them, or saw them, or said them. So, every night, before Maggie and Mummy read bedtime stories, Maggie chose a book and finds Neville, her stuffed ostrich. They make a cozy nest on Mummy's lap and snuggle together under the favorite quilt. And every night, Maggie asked the same question. One night, Maggie and Mummy were reading a story about a little girl who lived on the prairies many years ago. The little girl went to school in a one-room schoolhouse, had a chicken for a pet, and had to go to the bathroom in a little shed called an outhouse, which I'm sure some of us remember. One day, her brothers locked her in the outhouse and set the goat loose. The goat knocked the outhouse right over, and the brothers got in trouble. "Is that story true?" asked Maggie. "Well," said Mum, "the little girl in the story was a real person. And when she got older, she gathered all the stories she could remember and wrote them down. I don't know if everything that happened exactly the way she remembered it, but I think her stories give us a true sense of what it was like to grow up in a place and at that time." "I see," said Maggie, and climbed into bed. The next night, they read a story about a young king. The king went to visit in a faraway land, and there he heard about a special rope which had been tied in a very large knot, in a complicated knot. Excuse me, for some reason I'm hoarse this morning. It was said that whoever could undo the knot would become the ruler of the whole world. Of course, the young king wanted to see if he could solve the puzzle. When he saw the knot, he looked at it carefully and thought for a few minutes. Then he drew his sharp sword, and with one swift stroke, sliced the knot in two. "Is that a true story?" asked Maggie. "Well," said Mum, "the king in the story actually lived. His name was Alexander. I don't know whether he really cut the knot in half with his sword, but he was certainly bold and clever. He was good at seeing ways to do things that other people thought could not be done. So I suppose the story tells us something about Alexander that is true." "I see, Maggie, thank you," and climbed into bed. The next night, we read about a shepherd who looked after many sheep. Every night when the sheep came back to the sheepfold, the shepherd would count them. One night, one sheep was missing. So the shepherd went into the darkness to look for the sheep that was lost. Up hill and down, through the shadowy woods where wild animals roamed, a long narrow path. The shepherd searched until he found the sheep. It was hiding behind a rock, and it was cold. Gently, the shepherd took the sheep in his arms and brought it safely home. "Is that a true story?" asked Maggie. "Well," said Mum, "do you remember the time you were lost?" "Yes," said Maggie. "You looked and looked for me until you found me. I think I know how the sheep felt." "Do you?" said Mummy. "Then I guess the story is true." The next night, they read a story about a king. This king was granted one wish. Because he loved money, he wished that everything he touched would turn to gold. "I would like that," Margaret interrupted. "Would you?" asked Mummy. "Keep listening." The king had made a foolish wish, for when he sat down at the table for supper, the food turned to gold as soon as he touched it, and he couldn't eat a thing. His clothes became gold and weighed him down. Hungry and tired, he called his children to keep him company. But when he reached to give them a hug, they turned to gold statues, and he was left alone. "Is that story true?" asked Maggie. "Well," said Mummy, "this story did not really happen, No one can turn things to gold by touching them. But what does this story mean? When we are greedy and want more and more, sometimes we end up losing the things that are most important to us. Do you think that is true? I don't know, said Maggie. Think about it, said Mummy, and kissed Maggie good night. The next day, they read a beautiful story about a garden. Children love to play among the flowers and eat the juicy fruits of the trees. They did not know that the garden belonged to a giant. One day, the giant came home from traveling and found the children in his garden. He was very angry and roared at them to go away. Frightened, the children ran away and did not return. The giant built a huge stone wall around the garden to keep the children out. As months passed, the giant realized that spring was very slow to come. In fact, winter seemed to go on and on and on. Alone in the snow, the giant felt sad and lonely. His garden no longer seemed beautiful. But one morning he awoke to hear a drip, drip, drip of the melting snow. When he looked outside, he saw the buds of the trees and the crocuses peeking through the snow blankets. Spring has come at last. When the giant went outside to enjoy the garden, he saw why. The children had crept over the walls and climbed the trees. They had brought life and warmth to them. Is this a true story? Asked Maggie. Well, said Mim, what happens when people are selfish and do not share the beautiful things in their lives? What happens when people build walls to keep others out? Maybe they get lonely, suggested Maggie. Maybe, said Mummy. Maybe they feel cold and dead, just like the winter inside them. Maybe. Mummy, said Maggie, I've been thinking. What about my love? I think that some stories are true on the inside, even if they are not true on the outside. Mummy smiled and said, I think you're right. Maggie climbed into bed. I love you, said Mum. Is that true? Asked Maggie. Mummy smiled again and kissed Maggie on the forehead. Absolutely, she said. And that ends our story. And I think if you think about our story, you could probably name each one of those stories that was in there. And I'll leave it for you to guess. And I'd like to call on Adam to do our scripture reading.
Good morning. Our reading today is from Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 to 46. Actually, one of my favorite passages in the New Testament, and one that I delivered a service on myself about a year ago. This is a passage that has been interpreted in many ways throughout history, but at its core, it is a call to action, a reminder that our faith is not just about what we believe, but about how we live. In this passage, Jesus presents us with a vision of the end times when all nations will be gathered before him. But this is not a vision of a distant future. It is a call to live differently in the present. Jesus tells us that on that day, he will separate the sheep from the goats based on how they treated the most vulnerable members of society. The least of these that Jesus refers to are not just the poor and the marginalized, but all those who are oppressed and excluded. They are the ones who are forced to live on the margins of society, who are denied justice and dignity. And Jesus tells us that how we treat these individuals is how we treat him. This passage is often interpreted as a call to individual charity and kindness, but it is more than that. It is a call to dismantle the systems of oppression that create poverty and marginalization in the first place. It is a call to work for justice and equality, to challenge the powers and principalities that perpetuate injustice. In this sense, Matthew 25:31-46 is a profoundly political passage. It is a call to participate in the transformation of the world, to work towards a future where all people can live with dignity and respect. As Christians, we are called to take this passage seriously. We are called to work for justice and equality, to challenge the systems of oppression that perpetuate poverty and marginalization. We are called to care for the least of these, not just through individual acts of charity, but through our collective work for justice and transformation. May we be inspired by Jesus' teachings to work towards a world that is more just, more equitable, and more loving. May we be guided by the principles of love, justice, and compassion as we strive to live out our faith in the world. And with that preamble, the passage is as follows. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on the right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick in prison, and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. And Rhonda has prepared a short and simple poem as a supplement to the reading titled "Goats and Sheep." When the shepherd comes with staff in hand to separate the flock across the land, sheep and goats, a distinction made, a call to account for every deed and trade. But which am I, sheep or goat? Do I feed the hungry or turn my coat? Do I welcome strangers or shut the door? Do I see the Christ in those I ignore? The truth is I'm both sheep and goat, a mix of kindness and a selfish coat. I've fed the hungry and ignored the call. I've welcomed strangers and turned my back on all. But still the shepherd calls with gentle voice to awaken love and make a noble choice, to see the divine in every face, to feed, to welcome, to embrace. For in the sheep I see my better part, a heart that beats with compassion's art, and in the goat my shadowed side, a call to growth where love must reside. May I embrace both, sheep and goat within, and follow the shepherd where love begins. May these words, what is it again? Thank you. Open us to the Spirit's presence.
Sing? Okay, we'll sing. As I'm looking for the pages because it was such a long reading, and I do have a copy in case it's ever forgotten. Okay, we're going to sing Spirit Open My Heart. And thank you to all our musicians this morning for their lovely playing. Did you know that we're on the cusp of a new year? It's actually New Year's Eve. It's an exciting time in the church calendar. And this is the time where we switch lectionary years. Next week, we'll have a new lectionary year as we begin to prepare for the coming of the Christ child as we enter into the 4 weeks of Advent. But today we celebrate the end of the church year. It's a little different than we have on our normal calendars at home. As we celebrate the Reign of Christ Sunday, we're reminded that Jesus' teachings are not just about his divinity, but about the kind of world he has called us to create. A world of love, of justice, and compassion. In the parable of the sheep and goats, Jesus teaches us that our faith is about how we live with kindness and respect for others. It's about recognizing the divine in every person we meet, especially those who are marginalized or oppressed. I wonder if we reflect on our own lives and communities, how we would answer these questions. Where are we seeing Christ in our world? Where are we experiencing love, justice, and compassion? Where are we being called to work towards a more just and equitable world for every person here and in our world? Jesus' teachings are there to inspire, to reflect these values, to guide us by empathy and compassion. They strengthen us to continue to work for a brighter future for all. As we consider this Reign of Christ Sunday, we are reminded that it's not in the distant future, but in the present, in our ongoing one, right now. The reign of Christ is already here, as is our work for making it a reality for all people in the world. I remember a time when I volunteered at a church soup kitchen. Actually, it was one of the churches I was at. One of the guests, a man named John, struck up a conversation with me. As we talked, I learned that John had been struggling with homelessness, and he had been there for months. And Cranbrook in the winter is not a warm place. He was feeling desperate and alone. But as we shared that meal together, I saw dignity and worth in that man's eyes. And I was reminded of the importance of treating every person with kindness and respect. This experience taught me that the reign of Christ is not in the future, but now. By finding these inspirations in Jesus' teachings, we have the tools to build a world that reflects God's reign. It's not easy. We see so many things in our world right now that we wished weren't there, or we would like to change, which means we still have to keep working. We can be guided by the principles of compassion and empathy and kindness, even in those that we don't agree with or want to agree with, and be strengthened by our faith community to continue to work for a brighter future. I struggled with this passage in the sense of it was black and white to me at first. It hasn't always been, but every so often that black and white feeling comes. And I had to really think about what to say today. And then somehow, something popped into my mind back in the 70s. And I thought, this is weird, this is old. But in the 70s, I lived in Victoria. And I had a connection with the First Nations people there in the Craigflower Band. Actually, it was the son of the Craigflower Band, and him and I used to do social work courses together at WUC. It was a privilege, and I had been invited to attend a traditional ceremony where the elders spoke about the importance of living in harmony with both land and with one another. As I listened to the elders' words, I was struck by the deep wisdom and spirituality of these people. And I was reminded of the importance of reconciliation and healing between the Indigenous and the non-Indigenous, even back in the 70s. The experience opened another window for me, teaching me that the reign of Christ is not just about the individual, but about communal healing and restoration. There are countless ways that people are living in the reign of Christ in their daily lives. I think about the single mum who works a multitude of jobs to provide for her family, yet finds time to volunteer at the food bank. I think about refugees who spend days visiting seniors in care homes, bringing joy and compassion to people who are lonely. And I think about the young person who's passionate about our environment and creation and working tirelessly to raise awareness and advocate for change. These individuals and countless others like them are all living in this reign in their daily lives, and often without even realizing it. As we consider the parable of the sheep and the goats, I'm reminded that our actions have consequences. We are reminded that the way we treat others is a reflection of our faith. And we are reminded we are called to be agents of love in this world and to everyone we meet. Separation, judgment, punishment. Welcome to church this morning. It's a pretty hard scripture to take in at times that Adam read to us. So what do you make of it? Is Jesus separating the good from the bad? Is Jesus saying some are welcome in the kingdom and others are rejected and excluded? And if he is, are you in or out? Are you a sheep or a goat? I suspect many would say yes, that's exactly what he's saying. That's often how the text has been interpreted, or maybe misinterpreted. And too often, that's how we live. We separate ourselves from those who are different, whether they look different, act different, behave different, believe different, just different from us. Look at all the ways that's happening in our world today, on an individual level, but also through politics, through race, through immigration, through wars, the economy. That list goes on, and it's pretty sad. It's not just happening at a national level, however. It's also personal and local. I wonder if we've misunderstood what's happening when Jesus separates. Jesus doesn't see the things we see or interpret things the way we hear them. He lived in an upside-down world to us, and we sometimes struggle with that. Maybe his purpose in this passage is exactly opposite to what we see as separation. What if separation is not the same as exclusion? What if separation is a natural thing in life, something that we do need? From the time we're born, we're learning how to separate and how to make separations. It's a natural and necessary part of the world, part of our life and part of growing up. A newborn experiences himself as one with the world. When he cries, our response is instantly food or a diaper change or cuddles or coos. But instantly, his needs are satisfied. Then one day that baby cries, and it takes us a little bit longer to get to him. And he's beginning to experience his or her separation from his tiny world. My youngest grandson is 2, and he's learning about separation, and he's not always impressed by it. Doing things without mom and dad by his side is not always easy. He's in play school because he will be 3 by the end of the year. But leaving his parents at the door has been a struggle. He cries, he screams, he kicks. And yet, as soon as he's in that door and mom and dad aren't there, he's loving it. He brings home pictures and paintings, and I'm sure many of you have experienced the same things when your children were young. I know I did with mine. My oldest one used to go to a lovely lady's home care because I was working then. And every morning he would wake up and he would say, I hate Unger, I hate Unger, I hate Unger. And this would go on until I took him to Mrs. Unger's house. And I couldn't stand this. I found it so difficult. And yet I went back one morning. She said, just peek in the kitchen window. And there he was with all the other kids having a great time. Separation is different than exclusion. That little one discovered autonomy, individuality, and a new type of life. It was a growth, but it doesn't end there. There is struggles, arguments, and difficulties in growing up. It is a time of separating from parental authority, social norms, and beginning to discover our place in the world. What about leaving home when our kids go to school, or starting work, or getting married? And what about us? Some of us are retiring or retired, or coming out of retirement in my case. What more that's more separation. But it's about creating a new life and about a new way of being. Every choice we make involves a separation. But the question I had to ask myself was, is that separation life-giving or life-taking? I wonder if that's the difference between the sheep and the goats. Separation is at the center of creation and life. It goes back as far as the Genesis story. The world in that story was void. Then it was separated into two, night and day. It's been with us and with other traditional stories of other cultures, but there has always been a separation. And I wonder if that's what Jesus is talking about in the gospel today. Separating in order to bring about a new creation, a new life, a new way of being, in you and in me. It's not about sheep and goats, but at the same time, it is about sheep and goats. No one is all sheep or all goats. Who here has ever given food or clothing to someone or visited someone in the hospital or jail? Welcome to stranger. You can put up your hand if you want. I'm sure most of us have. You are the sheep. Who of you have driven by a homeless person standing on a corner in the street with a sign saying, homeless and hungry, or turned away from a stranger? In that case, you're the goat. I've done both. So we're all sheep and goats. We're both. There are parts of our lives that are sheep-like and other parts of our lives that are goat-like. I don't know about you, but it's a whole lot easier for me to sometimes see the negative in people than the positive. As much as I tell myself, everyone has some good in them, everyone has something special to give us or something to share, that negative feeling can come out in us still. I really believe that that's part of being human. But we have to take risks, and we have to challenge the status quo in order to create an equitable world. In the words of the United Church of Canada Statement of Faith, we're called to be the church, to celebrate God's presence, to live in respect to creation, to acknowledge our brokenness, and to proclaim the healing love of God. I think that says it very well. So let this Reign of Christ Sunday be a reminder to the call in our lives. Where is our faith? And how do we work towards that brighter future for all, including ourselves? Remember that separation can be life-giving or life-taking. That choice is ours. But remember, we're strengthened by what we do. And we're not alone in this work. We live in a global community of Christians, a global community in our church here of people that can help us and guide us. And God is with us, working towards the future with love, justice, and a compassionate reign. Amen. Thank you, Melanie and Elena. A beautiful rendition of the Carol of the Bells. Let us sing together, Christ within us hidden. As is our custom, we do not pass an offering plate. But at this time, Tom, will you bring the box forward? And any gifts that we have will be placed in the box, or were placed in the box. And as he brings it forward, let us sing, Grant Us God. Grant us, God, the gift of giving, with a spirit large and free, and ourselves and all our living be made an altar faithfully. Thank you, Tom. And Adam's going to share with us the minute for mission.
Today's Minute for Mission is titled Gifts with Vision, a Gift for All. I have everything I need. I can't think of anything I want. No gifts for me this year. This is something many of us have heard, and maybe something we found ourselves saying. And while it may be true, despite not wanting or needing anything, we know gifts are going to happen anyway. Instead of searching gifts for someone who is hard to buy for on the internet, why not just give gifts with vision? Gifts with Vision is a way to give gifts from the comfort of home with no packaging or wrapping needed. Instead of gadgets and fleeting trends, Gifts with Vision is full of gifts that will help transform lives throughout Canada and around the world. When placing your order, you'll be able to add an e-card, including a delivery date for each gift. Every Gift with Vision provides support for a specific mission and service partner offering a unique project. Without mission and service, Gifts with Vision projects would not be possible. Thank you for supporting both. When Christmas rolls around, remember that a meaningful gift is a simple click away. If madly dashing around the mail on Christmas Eve has been your gift-buying style, mall, I think that's his, sorry, not mail. A mall on Christmas Eve has been your gift-buying style. Kick back and relax. Gifts with Vision has you covered. Do we have some kind of link to put up or anything about? Super. Thank you.
Also, if you look up United Church of Canada, Gifts of Vision, you'll find it there on the internet. It's time for prayers of the people. We do prayers of the people by doing a short prayer. And then if you have an individual prayer need or someone that you would like to ask for prayers for, put up your hand and Kim will bring the mic around. And in closing, we will have a prayer up on the board that you can read to yourself or say your version of what you'd like to say. And that's how it works. Instead of starting with a prayer this morning, and I will end with a little bit of a prayer, I found something meaningful on the internet this morning. Actually, it was a couple days ago. It was An Ode We Owe by Amanda Gorman. It was a reading that was used in the 77th session of the UN General Assembly in New York. And I'm going to use that to start our prayers. We shall respect and protect every part of our planet, hand it to every heart on this earth until no one is rendered by class, gender, race, or identity. They were born. This morn, let it be sworn that we are one human kin, grounded not just by griefs we bear, but the good we begin. Ever-loving God, on this reign of Christ Sunday, help us to bear your image well in this world. And may those we meet and encounter experience something in your reign through us and through the way we treat others. Kim, if you'd like to pass the mic around.
Well, this is not so much an individual prayer. It's probably a blend between a God moment and prayer. I was thinking last night we attended what was really a concert at the Manteo Hotel, and we'd heard about a young woman who plays the flute, and this is through Karen. This young woman plays the flute and also participates in the Toot Sweet group, right? And what I was impressed with, she was just a brilliant flautist, and we thoroughly enjoyed. It was really a God moment to be there. And then afterwards, realized that she's having a real struggle. You know, that there's a real separation, I think, and she represents many people, I believe, who are on the borders, wanting to get into a life that's more fulfilling for them. And this, I think the idea of separation kind of stimulated this thinking. But the people on the borders who want to get in and are finding all the hurdles very difficult to overcome. Hurdles, in her case, hurdles with becoming a landed immigrant so that she could actually work productively in our society. And there are many people like her. And I think that it was a God moment to hear about her, not only her faith, but her determination to succeed. But I think there are so many people out there now that are waiting at the various borders, wanting to get in, wanting a more fulfilling life, and finding it very difficult. And it seems to me that this is that I would like to offer my prayers and our prayers to all these people who are determined to have a more fulfilling life and are standing at the borders.
Many of you know Brenda, my partner, and she's about 2.5 years in long COVID and lives a life of exhaustion. And people who know her realize that she's a very active person, does a lot of things. So she's doing her best with it, and your prayers will be welcome, and she keeps her psyche up. She's living as well as she can with what she's got. So, thank you.
I would ask for prayers for a friend who I've known for quite a long time, who has been diagnosed with cancer. And also prayers for my daughter-in-law, Tracy is her name, who is has undergone radiation and now has a year ahead of her of chemo, and it's been a real struggle for her.
We also hold up in prayer Sharon and Ron, Pat and Bob, Nina, George, Eric E., Tanya P., Kevin T., Ellie, Christine, Wendy, Gary, Louisa, Danielle and Rocky, and Fran and you, Elwyn. Let us pray the words on the screen or what we feel comfortable with in silence. Amen. Our closing hymn is I Am the Light of the World.
People come and follow me. You know the love
And as we go forth, here is our blessing. As we go, we will count our blessings, embody our faith, live an authentic life, never look down on the struggle for life. Notice behind every face there is a soul at work, and know that wherever you go, the Spirit of God is already there.